I have a new text-to-speech product coming out in the next few days. You guys are going to enjoy it. Yeah, I think trap rap is like hair metal. Trends in music, that's always what happens. Oh, is there a subscription thing? Sorry. Yeah, there's some new antipsychotics coming. I think eventually computers will be able to prescribe drugs. I think they'll be great. If dude is still short Tesla, Jim Chanos, I mean, that guy's a complete idiot. I don't know why anybody gives him money to manage. Tesla's like one of the most successful companies ever. Like, you just have to be out of your mind. I mean, the funny thing about investing is that it's not just a calculation game. And I think that a lot of people misunderstand and misinterpret what I've shown in investing. And I've tried my hardest to change that. Financial modeling and forecasting is an inexact science that only gives you a window into some of the things that, the potentialities that could happen. It's almost like Wheeler's many worlds hypothesis. You can't pick, only one of these routes will happen. The route could be Cybertruck does really well, and then Optimus does really well. And again, there's 50 or 100 self-driving, all the other variables. And those variables, say n equals 50, there are 50 choose 50 basically permutations that can happen. So it's a huge number of possibilities. It could be 52 to the 50th power, for example. So you can't predict the future, the exact path, but you want to be able to sort of like decide what that path looks like. The problem with investing is that great managers, that is CEOs and founders, take capital that's usually just on the balance sheet and they recycle it to make it shareholder equity. And that's extremely hard to model because you don't know how management's going to do that. Management doesn't know how management's going to do that, right? If you ask Elon Musk, what is the primary source of Tesla earnings 30 years from now? He doesn't know. He's going to figure it out. It may have nothing to do with cars. We don't know. The day I started my drug company, I didn't know what drug was going to be the most valuable drug in our portfolio. 10 years later, I have an answer, but I didn't have an answer then. So, you have to sort of make a bet on management. Now, you also have assets at the company. The assets are worth something. The earnings are worth something. You can value those types of things. And in some of my lessons, I even showed you how to try to value management, because ultimately, if management is an ROIC machine, you can emulate an ROIC machine as well. So anyway, it's silly to look at Tesla as a short if you're Jim Chanos, because one, it's gone up 40-fold from his short. So even if he had a 1% short position, he'd have a 40% short position now. So I'm sure he's covered it at some point, right? Yeah, if Francisco's right, the intrinsic value of a company is not exactly, the Graham-Dodd perspective assumes management never works for shareholder benefit. Now, on the flip side, you have management that destroys shareholder value too. But in terms of working for the shareholders and growing earnings, that's Coca-Cola did that for many years. Now, even with that, if you assume there's a certain ROIC that management can plow capital into good returns, you can kind of calculate that, but you're really calculating something very abstract. I have a technique that I've shown where if I like management, I'll assume their returns higher than their peers. And if I don't like management, assume it's a little lower. And that's a way to kind of get a little bit of that into the model. But it's still inexact because a serial compounder like Musk will create something really big. And you can't model with ROIC somebody making a breakthrough or a product being really a big hit. It's very hard to model. So that's what makes investing a challenge, right? It's what makes it difficult. I think, as you guys know, I kind of prefer entrepreneurship to investing, but I do think they're two sides of the same coin. As an entrepreneur, you have to deploy capital as well, right? And deploying capital in employees, you're deploying capital in assets, PP&E. You're deploying capital, including your time and your attention. Those are all things you have to do, and they're very different from buying financial securities. But sometimes you also have to buy financial securities. If you look at Oracle, they buy companies, right? It's very similar to investing. They're kind of a PE firm, right? They're a private equity company, an LBO firm. Quality management is a funny thing because it's a moving target. You can really like a manager, but you also have to see if you like all of their decisions, or if you start to believe that you don't like them anymore and stuff like that. And then even if somebody's a great manager, there is a price for every stock where you say, listen, I don't think they can live up to these expectations. It's too high, and vice versa. So anyway, yeah, I use Streamlabs. What is the 𝗕𝗢𝗢𝗡𝗢𝗢𝗡𝗢 beef? This is 𝗕𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗡600. It's just some weirdo on Twitter that is anonymous. And to me, like, if you're going to be anonymous and talk about people on the internet, you're going to have to own it at some point. If you've been watching me for years, you kind of know how I roll. You've seen me send Predator drones after people, right? Have you seen those YouTubes where I call up a pilot and he's like, Predator drone strike, I'm dialing it in. I got your longitude, I got your latitude. They've neutralized the target. I called them up. I said, do you know what a Hellfire missile is? They're like, no, what's that? It's like, it's a 40,000 pound payload that will soon be descending on your 4235 longitude latitude. Is this where you live? They're like, what? How'd you find that out? I said, you don't have to worry about that. Right now, you have to worry about getting out of the radius, the blast radius, which you have no hope of doing. I don't think all the AI bros or memers are anon. I think that Jan LeCun is not anonymous. Jeff Hinton's not anonymous. Hugo La Rochelle's not anonymous. I think a lot of the people who are anonymous are afraid of being outed because they're not as significant as they portray that they are. And with anonymity, you can pretend to be, Beautiful Soup 200. I'm Beautiful Soup 200. I'm the master of the universe. But if you actually reveal that you actually work at McDonald's, you lose the luster of the anon persona that you're LARPing as. So I don't need to LARP. Jan LeCun doesn't need to LARP. That's just the nature of the beast. Now, it's okay to be anonymous, and I'm not judging somebody for being anonymous. What I'm judging somebody is for trying to use anonymity as a sword and as a shield. You can use it as a shield, which is perfectly fine. I want privacy. I don't want people to know who I am. Cool. Understandable. Even slightly more to the right would be, I want to use it as a shield because I have opinions that I want to share. I want a voice, but I don't want to be canceled at my job. Totally cool. Makes sense. There's a reason some of those people do that. Satoshi had to do that, right? But then you have something where you're like, oh, okay, I want to be anonymous because I want to harass people and I want to get under their skin. Well, now, you're basically trying to use it as a sword and a shield. So the sword is, I want to cut people down with my anonymity, and I want to cut into their, personality without allowing my own personality to be evaluated. I want to cut into their credentials without allowing my own credentials to be evaluated. And it's typically people who are like 24 years old or something like that, which this kid is. And it's like, yeah, if people knew I was 24 and I don't know shit from Shinola, yeah, it would hurt my reputation if they saw my face and realized I was just some nerdy, it's kind of a disparaging term I don't like to use, but I think people refer to this person as a twink, which is basically a kind of eunuch-like gay male. Like they may decide like, okay, this guy's a loser. I'm not going to follow him or not interested in him, and the LARP disappears. So if you're anonymous and you like to LARP, it's just sort of frustrating if your LARP goes away. I use two phones. I've got one for the plug and one for the load. No, I got a Google Pixel and an iPhone. I use the Pixel just for Twitter because I was banned off Twitter. And this has its own phone number. This has its own everything. It's the only thing I do on this phone. Yeah, Lex already said he'd have me on his podcast. I text message Tucker Carlson every now and then. He's cool. It was weird that he put that guy on that was like said that he was with Obama. Pretty wild. You don't need to be good at school to get money. Would I pay $1 million to be back on Twitter? No, I wouldn't. I'd pay $50,000, but I wouldn't pay $1 million. Oh yeah, the MGM hack was interesting. I don't follow the hacker world as much as I used to. I'm focusing less on the AI doctor. It's important to me, but what we learned from the AI doctor is, we got over 100,000 users just in our first, couple of weeks. But I think what I've sort of realized is people don't want to look at a wall of text. I think LLMs sort of run the risk of like giving you too much information. We need to make them more conversational and more human. So I've been working on a text-to-speech app, and again, I'm releasing that in a few days. It's going to be an interesting tool, and I think that tools like Dr. Gupta, but also any kind of website or app or chatbot should be using a text-to-speech. It's much more immersive. People don't like to read. They much rather watch and listen. Yeah. So one of the problems I had was the recent, so it's Dr. Gupta 2.0, right? But it also is going to power some of our other tools. We're making a video game, as I mentioned, the Unity project earlier. We have a financial app. A lot of you know Godel. So there's a lot of stuff going on at our company. I'm really proud of our guys. It's called Godel, Godel. It promises to be a alternative to Bloomberg. So it's a free Bloomberg. We do want you to pay for it, obviously. So at some point you do have to pay for it, but it's basically a free Bloomberg. I can give you a preview. And some of you may have seen this before, but this is the new version. So Godel, this is the old version. You've probably seen it a number of times. Where you, like I said, in a web browser, you have actual quote monitors that look like a Wall Street quote monitor. And that's something that, you don't really get on a web browser, and it's windowed and everything. So this is just a web page. I made this 7 years ago in React, when React first came out. The new versions is much nicer. This is what it looks like. And you can see like the scrolling news, just like Bloomberg. The market's not open, but this would be flashing like crazy as well. And, this is something that, again, people don't have access to this type of thing, right? It's unfortunate that, there's no news now because it's Saturday, but during the day, this is like, it's unreadable, the amount of news that is flowing on your Bloomberg screen. And again, there's no website where you can get something like this. It's a real app. We use different vendors for APIs like Moody's and NASDAQ and all those people. Business Wire, Pure Newswire. And of course we have to use WebSockets. There's no link yet. We'll post it when it's ready, but it'll be able to do everything that Bloomberg does without all of the costs and issues. This is Godel V3, we call it. We pay for all the feeds, of course. I think every technology has to be pursued. When reactive front ends and virtual DOMs came out, it was a cool technology. We embraced it right away, and we have apps like this because of that, right? They're web apps. When WASM came out, we embraced it right away. When WebRTC came out, we embraced it right away. Like, we follow technology and then use it if it's useful. AI is useful. For example, AI, an LLM, could read every one of these news articles and tell you when something is important. That's a lot more exciting than you having to read them or getting a news alert that just semantically matches, right? If you say, "Dear LLM, give me only important breaking news about the companies I care about," it can do that, right? That's amazing. No Bloomberg could do that. So, their AI is just another tool for a software developer. It's not a monolith in and of itself, right? You have to use it to make your users happy. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. So I think that if you can't use AI to make your users happy, don't use it. Like, most of Godel does not use AI. It's It's much more of a big data, large amounts of server stuff like that. But just collecting and orchestrating huge amounts of data. Bloomberg costs a lot because Bloomberg has a monopoly on kind of having this brand. So anyway, if you make an app, I don't know, pick a video game, you can't really use AI a lot in a video game. I do think that it could enhance a video game, but it's not that crazy. But if you're making an AI doctor, I mean, the whole thing is AI basically, right? So each program has a percentage, and some will have 0 and some will have 100%. And the same thing goes with crypto, right? If you have a MetaMask, just a MetaMask auth on your web app, like 2% of your app is crypto. You're still using crypto, but it's not the key to your company. If you make a DEX, your app's 100% crypto basically, or 80% crypto, right? So I think it's all a function of what tools do you use to get the job done. And the job is to make your users happy. There are a bunch of alternatives for Bloomberg. Most of them fail to be real alternatives because they fail to have a command line. And you need a command line, terminal command line to really be productive. Yeah, Unity fumbled the bag, obviously, but it is what it is. I think people won't stop using Unity. The fact that there's so much pushback, it sort of shows you that they have a lot of customers, a lot of users. Yeah, it's probably a really good buy if it dumps. I don't think it's really dumped, right? I haven't checked. Of course, every company you're trying to reach unicorn level. AGI is something more substantial, but it'll be a while before we can do that. I have the Elon book over here. A couple of classics. Got the Elon book, but this is a more interesting book, Cybernetics by Norbert Weiner. Vivek, I have a history of Vivek. He's cool. He's great. Cool dude. Smart investor, smart entrepreneur. I do still take Effexor. Thank you for asking. Permanent cure for depression. That would be nice, wouldn't it? I don't think SSRIs will make you a Chad. I'm definitely interested in MSI and still focused on it. The Wizard book is a very tough book to read, to be the first, your first computer science book. Yeah, something's definitely coming. I'm not going to ignore that. I think, Marcus, you have to be willing to take risks. I wouldn't start a software company or think about it unless you're willing to take a lot of risk. The Hugging Face transformer is great. I don't think LangChain is that great. Presentation is about my view on AGI, but it's a little bit about LeCun's paper too. I think that, MSI is a ERC20 token that we're going to use in our software, but the only software we've released so far is Dr. Gupta and Drug-like, and it's implemented in one of those. We'll implement it in Gupta somehow, but you can't force feed crypto into software. It has to fit naturally. We'll have something, I think maybe in Godel, that'll fit more naturally. So yeah, it's 250 pages of him writing about this stuff, but I wonder if a lot of people have those documents. We know that who provided them to the New York Times, but I wonder if she sent them to other people. I wonder if 100 people has those documents. I wonder if a lot of people have seen them. Who knows? Look at this gut. I am so fat, it's insane. I gotta start lifting a little. Let's go. Got to lift with one hand and program with the other. I don't drink. I don't drink at all. I quit drinking. I maybe had one beer since I've been back from prison. Hey, look, you got to start somewhere. These aren't heavyweights, but too much Shake Shack. Shake Shacks, you can turn Shake Shack into muscle. It's not chicken or lean salmon or something, but I try to use lists, Thomas, whenever I can. Lists speak to me. I have the Wu-Tang MP3s if you want to hear them. They're not that good, though. I mean, it's not like, it's a magical album just because it's expensive. I went to real prison. There's federal prison camp, which I wasn't eligible for, unfortunately. I was not shredded in the joint. I worked very hard in prison. I never tweeted that I quit drinking, and I will still have a drink if I'm around. I was going to go do a happy hour, but, if there's a bunch of bad baddies, you know, some 25-year-old sexy investment banking analyst, she's got that pencil skirt, the high heels, blouse, one button unbuttoned, pretty little thing. I slide up to the bar like, yo, what's up? It's Shkreli. It's Shkreli. Best state in the U.S. to start a company is either Nevada or Delaware. The reason for that is those states protect management over shareholders. That might sound mean, but that's why people do it. There's a reason every company's in Delaware. Delaware prizes management decisions, and management basically is carte blanche to do what it sees fit. Any transaction ratified by management or the board is a legal transaction. Other states will not protect management as much as Delaware will. Outside of the U.S., there's lots of pros and cons. You can go with BVI, you can go with Caymans, etc. But you know there are downsides to that too. It all depends on what you're trying to pull off. Big states like California and New York are the worst, and you're talking about employment law, which you can't get around. With Delaware, you can incorporate there, and you have an office there. You have an agent, but with corporate law in that state, it can be very ugly. Yeah, I actually have never started a company in the Middle East, so I don't know.